You are an ocean king. Here you're trying to find resources for your underwater realm. The goal of this game is to score the highest amount of prosperity points by exploring new territories, recruiting new characters to join your realm, obtaining locations, and utilizing mantas for resources and completing goals. Hi everyone, my name is Tim Chuon. I make board game cinematics, and today we're going to show you how to play Aquatica here on the Dice Tower. So we'll be setting up for a 2-player game, and we're also doing the base game, starting first with the main board in the center. Then you want to take this deck of character cards, and you can tell that they're character cards because they are devoid of any symbols in the top right corner. You want to shuffle these and put them on the bottom right corner of the board. Then take the top 6 cards and put it on the characters row right next to the deck. These thinner cards are called the location cards. You'll put this deck in the row above the characters deck, and then take the top 6 of this deck and fill this empty row. And the last part of this main setup is to take these purple wild mantas and put them with their effect side up next to the board. I actually like to sort them by effect, so they're way easier to find later on. Now for player setup, everyone is going to take one of these player boards. And then you can pick one out of the 4 symbols and take a set of 6 starting character cards with 4 trained mantas that match that symbol that you're going to play with. You can keep the manta minis with the effect side up, and then the player who most recently dived into the sea is the one that's going to go first, or however you want to figure out turn order, up to you. So here's how you play the game. On your turn, you basically only have to do one thing, which is to play a card from your hand. And then you have 2 additional options after that that you can perform as many times as you want. So let's go ahead and break down the main action first and then the types of cards right after. So on your turn, you have to play one of these 6 character cards from your hand and perform as many effects as possible on that card. You have 6 different types of effects. First, you have your Blue Water Agents card, and this card says you can recruit, which means you can pick an ocean character from the ocean board by paying however many coins are listed there and then putting that card in your hand. The card on the far left is always going to be free. And then you slide all the cards over to the left and fill in the rightmost space. But now you're asking, wait, hold on. Where do these coins come from? How do I pay for all this? Well, one source is from your 4 trained mantas that you started with. So if you want to use the trained manta to pay for a card, then you're going to flip over your manta, and now that manta is tired. So if I want to buy the Grappler card, then I can flip over my 1 coin manta, and now it's tired, and then I can go ahead and recruit the Grappler from the board. The second source of coins is going to come from location cards, leading us to effect number 2, buying a location. Now just like character cards, you can buy a location by paying the coins listed at the top of the card. And then you take this card and put it on an empty slot on your player board. You just have to make sure that the top depth appears in the circle. Depths are the blue circles on the bottom left corner of the location cards. But let's say you don't have enough coins and you want another way to buy this location. You'll also see these red trident symbols at the top of the card, and this is called power. Instead of buying a location, effect number 3 is to conquer a location, like it says on your legionary card. You conquer a location by paying the listed amount of power and again inserting it into your player board. You just need to make sure that you have an empty slot on your player board in order to buy a location with coins, or conquering a location by having enough power to spend. Your trained mantas also have power, and you can use those to pay for those location cards as well. Now I mentioned earlier that coins come from mantas or from locations. If you decide to use whatever resource that's listed on your depth, that's called exploiting a location. So you move it up 1 space and then you'll eventually reach these empty depths, and with those circles you can't do anything with them. So that leads us to the 4th effect, which is to raise a location, like how it's listed on your Wave Teller card. Every time you see one of these arrow symbols, it means you can raise a certain amount of depth on location, and then you just slide it up. You can also split the amount of depths, so if I play the Researcher card, which lets me raise 3 depths, then I can use it to raise 2 depths on this card and 1 depth on this card. If you happen to pass resources as you're raising depths, like for example these +2 coins, you don't gain any of them as you pass them, and empty depths again do not do anything for you at all. Now you'll also notice that these location cards have a symbol in the bottom right corner. They have 1 out of 4 types. You have the Shark Bay, the Sunken Ships, Ocean Volcanoes, and Decayed Civilizations. If a depth specifies a location, then that effect only works for that location type. So for example, let's say I exploit this location, which gives me 2 power for Shark Bay, then I can only use it to buy the Shark Bay location, not these other 2. Another important thing to note is that you can't raise the same location that you're using the effect from. So if this location allows me to raise 2 depths, then I have to slide it up first because I'm exploiting that location, and then raise a different location or locations. When locations reach the very bottom, they're called fully risen. So they'll show victory points listed on the bottom left corner. Sometimes a location card will also have a purple manta symbol. That means you gain one of the purple wild mantas listed on that card, which you can use as soon as you get it. But now, you may be wondering, hold on, do I get those victory points as soon as the location is fully risen? Not yet. Actually, let me tell you exactly how you do that. Introducing effect number 5, which is to score. You need to use a card that has this scoring symbol. Again, like one shown on your Wave Teller card. And then you can take the fully risen location and then put it above the left slot, and that is going to be your scoring pile. And the last effect that you'll run into on character cards is the scouting action, like the one listed on your Seahorse card. This is the only main action that is optional. So to scout, you'll take every location from the top row, and then you're gonna put them in the discard pile. Then you move all locations from the bottom row up to the top row. If you happen to have more than 4 cards, then get rid of cards until you have 4 cards to put in the top slot. And then lastly, you fill the bottom row with 6 more location cards from the top of the deck. The reason why you'd want to scout is because these cards listed up top now have a reduction in 1 power. Okay, so here's the last part of the game, and then we'll do a full recap. Now at the top of the board, you'll see these 4 goals. If you ever meet these goals, you can take one of your trained mantas. It doesn't matter if they're ready or they're tired, and then you can put them on an open slot on the very left side. You don't have to place a manta there even if you've met the goal, but you will gain more points if you are the first person to reach each goal. The top left goal is if you have 8 character cards in your hand. The bottom left goal is if you have 5 locations on your player board. The top right is if you have 3 or more locations in your scoring pile, and the bottom right is if you have 2 or more wild mantas. So on your turn, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna play a card from your hand, and once you finish, it's gonna go in the discard pile on the top right of your player board. Remember that you have to do all the effects shown if you can. Your optional actions are to flip over your mantas in order to use their effect or their resource, but then they become tired. And then your second option is to exploit a location's depth, which just means to use whatever symbol is currently showing on your location card. Now these could be coins, they could be power to pay for cards, or they could also be effects that you can use before or after you play a card as your main action. All you do is slide it up once you exploit the location, and if you reach an empty depth, then it's going to be stuck there until you use the raise effect. And again, you'll have 6 effects that you run into as you play cards. You can recruit a card by paying the coins listed. You just slide cards over to the left and refill the card from the top of the deck. You can also buy locations by spending coins and putting them in your player board until the first depth shows. You can conquer a location by spending power instead of coins. Again, if you conquer, same as buying, so you just put them in your player board until the first depth is showing. Raising a location comes from these arrow symbols and allows you to slide locations up. Once a location is fully risen, you're going to need to score them somehow. So then you need to look for a card that uses this symbol, and that's effect number 5, which is to score a fully risen location card. And the 6th and last effect is if you want to decrease the cost of power of the locations listed, or if you just want to get some new options for new locations, then you can scout. And again, this is the only optional main action. So to scout, move these cards up, put these cards in the discard pile, and refill the bottom row. The game is over once a player accomplishes all 4 goals, once the location deck is empty, or once the ocean character deck is empty. And then each player, including the person who triggered endgame, takes 1 more turn. And then you just count up all your prosperity points. So you get 1 point per character card in your hand. You get prosperity points from your mantas on the goal tracks. And lastly, you total up the number of points listed in your scoring pile. Most points wins the game, and ties go to the most mantas in your reserve. So that was a tutorial on how to play the base game of Aquatica. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you on the next how to play here on the Dice Tower.